Good evening. Tonight is Monday, January 11th, 2021, and we do have a quorum, so I call this meeting to order. Due to the current federal and state emergency declarations, the Minnesota directive to residents to stay home, and guidance about limiting person-to-person contact due to the COVID-19 pandemic, this meeting of the Edina Public School District School Board is being conducted online in accordance with Minnesota Statute 13D-021. People may monitor this meeting from a remote location by the district's YouTube channel. John, would you please review our agenda for the evening?
Yes. So tonight we'll have a recognition of our great media specialists who've been unsung heroes this year in our year of COVID. I'll hear from members of the public, several letters to read. We have a consent agenda that has some contracts as well as minutes and a guidebook in discussion as we get ready to approve going out for a technology referendum. We're giving some background around the tax impact of that. So John and Steve will be giving some background around the technology referendum. And then in action, we're approving budget parameters so we can begin to build the 21-22 budget. John will present what those parameters are. Jody will present the new secondary new course proposals. And Jody and Randy will be talking about elementary grading and how we are making adjustments in our grading for both elementary and secondary during this pandemic. And then just the information that's with that, I want to call our attention to the response from the Minnesota Department of Education and Minnesota Department of Health to the school board's letter to the state. So with that is the agenda.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Do I have a motion to approve our agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second? We will now vote by roll call to approve our agenda for the evening.
Allenberg.
Aye.
Fox.
Aye.
Reed.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Michelson.
Aye.
Shaw.
Aye.
Wallen-Friedman.
Aye.
The agenda is approved. We're going to move to our Excellence in Action portion featuring our media specialists. Tonight, the spotlight is on the role of our media specialists in our school. Since the pandemic began, the district's media specialists have especially focused on getting books into the hands of our students, even when they're learning from a distance. Joining us tonight are media specialist Krista Winkle from Creek Valley Elementary and Sharon Gaughan from Cornelia Elementary. So welcome, our wonderful media specialists.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Our pleasure.
I'm going to be presenting my screen, and Sharon and I will be kind of tag teaming as we go through our short little presentation we created for all of you. Just getting that up here. All right, so our Edina Public Schools Media Centers, just a quick refresher for anyone, why the media centers are so important. There's lots and lots of studies that show that scores in reading and just achievement overall for students are higher with media specialists in every single building, and Edina is very lucky and unique that we have a media specialist in every single building. That's not something that all districts can say nowadays.
Okay. What we're doing to support reading, we record read aloud videos and send the links out on our own YouTube channels to the kids, create book lists of recommended reading for the kids, tutorials and screencasts on how kids can use technology. For example, how to request books online. We continue to improve our book collections for pleasure reading as well as learning. And we do have weekly book checkouts for the in-person students when they come to the library every week.
But it's not just our in-person kids that we're supporting. We're also supporting our EVA students, and depending on the building, Some of them are having in-person checkouts for those students to come in at, maybe on the asynchronous Wednesdays or at other times. We're also directing them to resources they can also get from the Hennepin County Library. We're allowing students to put book holds and do contactless book pickup. We're still continuing to push out read alouds and digital citizenship lessons to all those students. And lots of tech support. We even last spring, you can see that middle picture, we gathered some funds together and a few of us waited outside the food pickups a couple days a week and handed out books. And we also had books stashed in all of the food deliveries that happened last spring as well.
Yes. And during distance learning, we still some of us have in-person book checkouts or these same online book holds and pick up at school, providing lots of tech support, doing help desk tickets, and Krista already talked about distributing food and books during material pickups, and we do partner with Hennepin County Library as well. We even have our own little website, Elementary Media e-learning resources, which is in the student portal.
So the numbers prove it. So far this year, we have circulated over 58,000 print books. And in addition, ebooks and audiobooks that have been checked out at the secondary is 1,283 different titles, or checkouts, I should say.
Yes, so we are the jack of all trades. We do support for Schoology, Seesaw, Google Meets with kids, parents, teachers, digital citizenship lessons. We've given out usernames and passwords and QR codes. A gazillion devices have been checked out for kids and staff. We support the new view boards in the classrooms. Thank you very much for those. And the new IPVO cameras. We provide instructional support for our teachers and paras. We do news shows and everything else they want us to do. We're right there. That's our job, is to provide them service.
And maybe it'll take a moment here to load. We do have some videos. I don't know how much time you have for these. Are just statements from families for the work that we've done. Erica, do you want to? I mean, this is something you could view later as well, or we can show them. I just didn't want to take.
Yeah, sure.
Time. Okay. This one is for sure quick.
Yeah, I like reading. Like getting books from the library, I can just get whatever I think is really good. It feels really good. I like the books. I can get whatever type I want. Yeah, I like getting books from the library.
There, we've got some family ones here too.
I really like how you can get interested into one book and keep reading that series to know more about it. My favorite thing about the library is that there's so many good books to choose from. I think it's cool that you get to get new books every week and more than one of them because it's fun to explore new options.
All our kids love their library day, and I love it as mom because they're reading a book when they come home and they're not asking for screen time. They're so excited about whatever new book there is. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
And then just one more of our EVA families.
Hi, I'm Desiree Carvel.
Hello, my name is Maxine Colvin, and I'm in 4th grade. Hello, I'm Kate Carvel, I'm in 5th grade.
And we are part of the Creek Valley community, and we are doing EVA this fall, and we've been lucky enough to benefit from the library at Creek Valley being open. In the spring, it was great that we could grab as many books as we needed to supplement for the quick change in schooling. And after that, in the summer, we spent an inordinate amount of money trying to keep our kids in books and reading, as we have very voracious readers in the household. And Maxwell, who's in 1st grade, can read now. So we're very thankful that after the long summer, when school got back in session, that the Creek Valley Library was open for business. It has helped a lot being able to supplement, especially with Maxwell at his reading level, in order to help give him books to read for independent reading time during school, and also for him to be able to read other things that he's interested in after the school day is done, as it usually does in the middle of all of his time.
It also helps me because I'm in advanced reading and I'm supposed to read across genres. So having the library open and not having to purchase special books and not know what they're about, we can go in the library and we can look at what they're about and then we can purchase them.
I'm very thankful to Ms. Winkle. She has made it very easy, the process. We get to pick books up and not have any contact, and we just pick them up and drop them off, and it's a very, very simple, easy process. And when we have material pickups, it's just easy to grab our books at the same time. So for us, having the library open has really been a great resource in order to enhance their learning experience and add to it during these incredibly difficult and interesting times. So we're very much thankful for the library.
Yay.
So that is it for our presentation. I can speak for myself that a bonus of this is that it's been so much of a focus for us to get books in the hands of kids, which is why I got into this job. I do a lot more tech support than I anticipated, but I'm still getting to do connecting kids with books as well. So.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Do any board members have questions or comments? No? Well, thank you for everything you guys are doing. I know you guys are doing a great job getting books into the hands of students, and it looks like Matt does have.
I was waiting to just say great job when everybody said great job. I don't have any specific questions. I think getting the access remotely and being clever about the ways to deliver that material is hard. So there was a full sentence, but great job. Thank you.
I was waiting for Krista to comment about how much she missed me sorting books at the Creek Valley Library.
That is true. I do miss our volunteers quite a bit. It is actually a lot quieter because of that. We don't have the parents coming in and helping. But
yeah. Well, thank you. Thank you. Excellent job.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Okay. We are now moving on to our community comments or hearings from the member of the public. So we did receive multiple emails with requests to have them read at the board meeting. I just wanted to give some reminders to the community about how our public comments work. Public comments are only read at our main board meetings, not at our work sessions or special meetings. So those would be our public meetings that take place Monday evenings at 7:00. If you'd like an email to be considered to be read at the board meeting, please email it to us by noon, the day of the board meeting. And please use the subject line for board meeting comment or let us know in the body of your email. We do have a board policy 206, and any emails or public testimony need to be associated with a person and have an accompanying name and address. Emails and public testimony are also limited to 3 minutes and may not contain complaints regarding individuals. Now, Business Director John Tope is going to read tonight's public comments for us.
Thank you, Chair Ellenberg. The first email reads, Dear School Board, now more than ever before, the need for civil discourse is critical. What we saw yesterday was a display of violence and disrespect to our democracy and the processes that have kept our country moving forward for 223 years. I truly believe that every single person in that mob understands that one of the most important pillars on which our democracy stands is the peaceful transfer of power from one elected president to the next. But the issue here is the lack of civil discourse that occurred. And this has been a brewing storm for years. We as people, we as citizens of the US and of the 21st century, no longer know how to speak with one another. We don't know how to debate and to disagree and to hear the other person's side. One of the major culprits, in my opinion, is social media. Any individual can post a picture, a video, a statement, and not face the consequences of being intellectually challenged on what they just posted. There is very little space on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook to thoughtfully respond, to debate, to challenge a grandiose statement or claim. And so without a second thought, we retweet or we screenshot and post again, only continuing to fan the flame. I am the first one to admit I have fallen into that trap as well. If we don't teach our kids how to have challenging, engaging, frustrating conversations in the safe space of the classroom, we will only continue to fall deeper and deeper into the spiral of blaming, finger pointing, alienating, and grandstanding, which, as we saw last night, ultimately culminates into violence and disrespect. I'm writing to ask how a proper civic education is being taught throughout the state and how our children are learning that everyone has a voice to be heard. This means not just one chapter on civics in 9th grade, not just one school field trip where all students visit the state capitol for the afternoon. This means a thoughtful, engaging, interactive, and challenging curriculum unto itself that shows our children how to properly use their voice in this democracy. I look forward to hearing from you about how our state can do better in developing each Minnesotan's civic duties. Thank you, Sarah Kloss.
Thank you, John. We also had many emails about the return to school for our secondary students. So here is a sample of some of the many different perspectives.
Dear Edina School Board, Edina Parents for Progress was started last week with the singular goal of returning all students to the classroom 5 days a week. The group is large and growing as we have tapped a nerve of parents who believe that it is time for our children to return to in-person learning. Several students have engaged with us through their school newspaper and various social channels. We are so proud of them for finding their voice and articulating their position. While we have been careful in our dealings with students, we wanted to make sure that we were clear with the board and the community. Edina is and has always been about excellence in education. The most fundamental element of excellence, in our opinion, is choice. What some students have missed is that no one is going to require them to go to school if they don't feel safe. However, they cannot and do not speak for all students on what is working for them. While we are aware that some students are enjoying vacations and advanced sports training across the country, this is not the reality for most of our students. We have seen the data from several parents about what other districts are doing. Over 50% of the state has returned to hybrid or in-person learning for all students. We are behind. And finally, we must remove the hysteria from the discussion. It is simply not productive to look backwards, cite politics, or otherwise. The current case count in Hennepin County, based on the data you receive weekly, Superintendent, is 21.7 cases per 10,000. In Edina, it is 22.7. This is a dramatic decline and speaks to the incidence of COVID-19 in our community. We look forward to the plan to return our children to school. Edina Parents for Progress, Jeff Northrup, Elizabeth Ross, Nicole Schnell, and over 700 others. And it says, P.S., we're happy to provide the more than 700 names and 75 public comments of support where appropriate if requested. The next email starts with Edina School Board members. I was disappointed to read that the plans to return to in-person learning exclude middle school students. As cases in Minnesota have been dropping precipitously in a good way and well beyond forecast, it is time to accelerate getting our kids back to school. Based on the public data and the fall semester hybrid experience, I would implore you to move more quickly to get middle schoolers and possibly high schoolers to get back in the classroom. It was clear that this fall's hybrid protocols were a priority and worked well. With those protocols already established, it seems pretty straightforward to return quickly to hybrid in middle school. While everyone is fixated on getting the youngest kids back first, it might be smartest to start with middle school. According to the state COVID statistics, middle school and younger aged populations significantly under-index on confirmed COVID cases. I would suggest that high schoolers are more social, increasing the risk, and elementary students struggle with social distancing, increasing the risk. This may be why middle schools seem to be the least impacted by COVID cases this past fall. The 3 grade at a time guideline is arbitrary, as it ignores the zero overlap between different school populations. I could understand incrementally adding grades within a building, However, there is no overlap between elementary, middle school, and high schoolers, and therefore it is unreasonable to conclude that a linear transition will contribute to safety. Whether due to closing the bars, prudent behavior, or perhaps the natural course of viruses, new COVID cases have fallen dramatically in Minnesota. Based on the Star Tribune website as of Christmas Eve, Hennepin County ranked about 60th in Minnesota counties, bottom third, on new case growth in the last 7 days. More encouraging, positivity rates have fallen to less than 5%. Throughout the pandemic, Edina has had fewer cases than that total Hennepin County, and that bodes well for opening Edina schools sooner than some surrounding communities. I understand that the official stats lag a couple weeks, and based on the daily reporting, I expect trends to continue in the right direction. I hope the school district is ready to capitalize as those trends continue. Thanks for your consideration. Edina Schools were a leader in the Twin Cities this fall, and I believe it can chart the path in the second semester as well. Regards, Bill Dean, Valley View Middle School parent. Next email starts with, Dear board members, I am writing in response to the announcement that the K-5 kids will be returning to in-person learning in a month. A few questions unanswered. 1, what is the rationale for not sending the kids back to in-person learning after the holiday break? The existing data does not indicate a need to delay another month, and your explanation that it will start at the semester is arbitrary, especially considering you delayed the start of the semester and severely hindered learning thus far with many extra days off and changes to routines. Waiting longer puts our kids further and further behind their neighboring district/private schools who get to return to in-person learning. Question 2, why do the teachers need a transition time once they return to in-person learning with Wednesdays off? We all know the asynchronous days are not learning days. Checking in for attendance so your data stays clean is different than providing a day of teaching. Of course, when teachers/kids are off for the summer, we do not return to fall school years with 1 day off for an undetermined amount of time for adjusting to the new routine. Teachers are returning to what they are trained to do, teach in person. The adjustments being made to allow for additional safety precautions have already been practiced in some capacity with the hybrid model thus far. To further eliminate school days for kids is not responsible. Weeks and weeks of preparation for a routine that is standard warrants detailed explanation to your customers. Third question. What data are you using to support leaving the middle school kids in a distance, then hybrid model instead of returning to full in-person? Was this decision data informed or based on fear and/or indecision? I have not seen any data or information to support the need to further isolate these kids indefinitely. Why is it safe for them to play contact sports but not learn in a classroom? You owe us an explanation that includes scientific data to back up your decision. Have you not been made aware of the many risks of keeping this age group of kids remote and isolated? We owe the kids of Edina an education. As a top school district in the state and country, we should be leading the way in response to educating during the pandemic. Actions to date have not demonstrated leading qualities, and in fact, as a parent, it feels like a big failure. I do not sense any urgency from you to make the best possible education happen. Additionally, if you plan to start allowing Edina kids to play sports before they are allowed to learn in person, it sends a signal to residents, students, and families where your priorities lie. Please consider making educating our kids the top priority above all. I look forward to you addressing these questions. Regards, Andrea Bouchow. Next email is starting with Dr. Schultz and Edina school board members. A year ago, the thought of not having our children in public schools was unimaginable. However, after our experience this year, we may be left with no choice but to take our children's education elsewhere. Watching every board meeting leaves me with the feeling that no one cares about how devastating distance learning has been for our children or is fighting for what is best for them. We have watched our happy, motivated high school daughters struggle immeasurably with little support or empathy from the school district. As board members, we elected you to advocate for the children and families of Edina. That is your job. 67.5% of middle and high school families indicated that they want their children in school buildings. So you should be doing everything in your power to make that happen as quickly as possible. School is where children are safest. Dr. Schultz shared with my husband that there was not a single transmission that happened in any Edina school building during hybrid learning. You have the ability to use a variety of metrics in your decision-making to have schools open or closed, and transmission within school buildings is one of them. We are counting on you to advocate for our children to be in school where they are safest from COVID and many other public health concerns. Depression, anxiety, suicide, substance abuse, and child abuse are all rising at alarming rates. Not once, ever, in any meeting were these public health concerns acknowledged or discussed. In addition, for a school district that prides itself on valuing equity, I'm sure you will agree that there is nothing more inequitable than distance learning. Families with financial means are paying for private schools, tutors, nannies, therapists, the list goes on. Those who cannot will be at an even bigger disadvantage than before, making the already disturbing achievement gap even more prevalent. In his letter from last night, the superintendent referred to county and district numbers from 2 weeks ago in his message that indicated no plans were being made for secondary students to return to in-person school. However, he failed to acknowledge that, thankfully, the county numbers have dropped quite significantly in the past 2 weeks. Sharing this downward trend would have been more transparent while portraying a message of hopefulness. As of January 4th, the numbers were Hennepin County 21.7 and Edina 22.7 cases per 10,000 people. Very close to safe enough for full-time in-person learning. While I disagree with this metric and know that there are many other health metrics that should be considered, your reliance on it for quickly closing down schools should also mandate schools reopening as quickly as possible when the numbers allow. The argument that you need to wait to see what happens over weeks did not seem to apply the other way. There was no wait to see if things improved before closing schools. Instead, it was done with less than a day's notice. Therefore, being ready to have students back in school as quickly as possible while the numbers are dropping would seem to follow the same logic. I am asking you to do what we elected you to do. Represent us by fighting for the safety and education of our children. Open the schools. Sincerely, Sarah Perry. Next email starts with, Dear School Board, as a parent of a sixth grader at VVMS, I'm writing for the third time to urge you to get them back into the classroom ASAP, like in 2 weeks. All of the trends are improving significantly in Minnesota, and the numbers per 10,000 cases in Hennepin County are to the point that they were at in October, when middle schoolers were successfully still in school with very low COVID case counts. The risk of middle schoolers passing the virus is so low. The risks of not having them in school, mental health, getting involved in drugs and alcohol, are much higher. Instead of accelerating their return to the classroom, we have prioritized Edina hockey. How can I explain this to my son? Additionally, the pace that you're restarting in-person classes makes 0 sense. Since the hybrid model has already been effective, why is the staggered start needed? Other than it's an arbitrary guideline from the governor? There is 0 physical overlap between the elementary schools and middle schoolers at Valley View, so start them on the same day. These kids are dying at home without any social interaction. We can move more quickly if we really believe that educating kids is a priority. I don't think we should wait for the expert to give the all clear because we will wait all school year. Starting back in school with the start of the second semester seems prudent and very doable. I hope you will take this challenge and accelerate the timetable. It will help both schools and parents. We look forward to hearing from you soon. Sincerely, Christine Dean. The next email starts out with, Dear neighbors. Dear neighbors, I think most of us have been through hard times before, but this is a marathon. This is a gauntlet. People are losing family members, friends, businesses, hope. We have all lost so much since this pandemic began. Perhaps most of all, we have lost each other. Like it or not, our wagons are all hitched. If we don't learn to take care of each other through this, we're going to feel it for a long time. Our kids will likely feel it even longer. We have different ideas, it would seem, on what taking care of each other really means. I say it means valuing an 80-year-old life as much as an 8-year-old life. I say it means being honest about what we're facing and behaving as if the virus is already at the door. It might be. Children can handle being charged with protecting the vulnerable. In my experience, good-hearted children welcome that responsibility. We adults tend to struggle with it a bit or a lot more. Government officials, frontline workers, business owners, and more are all making impossible decisions in real time based on information that's changing moment by moment. They carry the burden of keeping people safe and whole during a dangerous time, which we know is never really possible. I can practically hear the chorus of anti-mask, open the schools, let them play folks shouting, "Amen," when I write that, but I didn't say we shouldn't try. We have to try. There are practical and moral reasons to try. Societal reasons, educational reasons. Great brains without strong, generous hearts to anchor them are of no use to our society. If we're really worried about mental health, then let's give meaning to this sacrifice. Let's protect each other, and especially our children, from the burden of being responsible for someone else's demise. Nobody recovers from that. Children don't tend to get seriously sick from this virus, but do we think they won't feel it if they watch it happen to the people they love? Let's tell them why we're wearing masks and staying home. We're Americans, so we help if we can help. Education is about more than above average test scores, right? It's about flexible problem solving and critical thinking and understanding that your right to pleasure ends where someone else's right to survival begins. COVID is a fantastic opportunity to study that. Calculus, geography, literature, and physics will all be waiting on the other side of this. Don't worry. There's nothing that says our kids have to learn absolutely everything before they turn 18. We didn't. Public health policy experts, the physicians who write textbooks about medicine, and those who listen to them tell us this is real. More than 350,000 deaths, friends with lasting symptoms, and school board members with more information than we think we have tell us this is real. We don't want it to be, but it is. It's real and it's here, and we have to link arms and get through it. We're almost there, Edina. Don't give up now. In love and solidarity, Marta Skluzazik, Drew, class of 1991. Next email starts with, "Dear members of the school board, this is a belated, apologies for that, note to express my appreciation for all the time and energy you have been giving to our students during this unprecedented school year. My kids were in hybrid in the fall, and I was grateful for your decision to move to distance learning when COVID numbers were skyrocketing here in Minnesota. I have reluctantly signed up the kids for in-person learning for the second semester and fervently hope that all families will follow the COVID guidelines so the kids can stay in school. If COVID numbers start soaring again, I will be grateful for your difficult decisions again. You have already been faced with near impossible decisions with no perfect options and much controversy on both sides, and will likely be faced with similarly awful choices in the coming months. Please know that regardless of the outcomes, we appreciate your time, energy, creative thinking, and obvious care for our students and school communities. Here's to a better 2021 for all. Be well, Jenny Griskovicius, mom of 4 at Cornelia." Next email isn't addressed to anybody, but it starts with, "Yesterday, I learned about an open letter to the Edina School Board ostensibly talking about trust that linked to a petition to get the EPS kids back to school 5 days a week, K-12. As a parent of a Concord 4th grader and kindergartner, I was flabbergasted at the tone of the open letter and what it purported. I was going to draft a long note to the school board addressing each point, but of course, the students have done a much better job of that in an open letter in the EHS Zephyrus, which poignantly captures my thoughts. So, I am sending this email to voice my thanks to you for all the work you've done for our kids, teachers, families, and community during this difficult COVID year. I can only imagine how much more time, energy, and effort all of you have given than you ever anticipated. I am so grateful for our EPS administration, board, teachers, and staff who've consistently shown up during such a challenging time. When times have gotten tough and we've had to shift our expectations, as we often have this year, I have repeatedly told my kids that we have people like you helping make sure we all stay safe while continuing to learn and play as best we can. At the same time, I focused on the things we've gained, the silver linings, like the incredible family bonds we've formed this year, and all the outdoor time we've been able to spend together and with a handful of friends, and the resilience our young boys and we have built up. If we can get through COVID, we can get through anything has become a refrain in our home. Mr. Rogers' mom said it best, that in times of crisis, we should always look for the helpers. You are the helpers, and I'll always be grateful for you and the service you've provided to our community. Please know that I'm one parent who adamantly trusts and is in support of the school board. Sincerely, Michelle Meek. The next email starts with, Dear school board members, I read the open letter to the school board that is on the Edina Parents for Progress page, and I strongly disagree with it. I have seen the board put children first, listen to experts in science, and do everything you can to get kids back to school in a safe way. I have not lost trust in you, and I thank you for working to make hard decisions in an extremely divided community and country. I do not think it is a good idea to use alternative science or data to get to a resolution that would allow kids to go back to school. I do not think Edina should have been rewriting state guidelines to get more students back in school. I do not think it is the board's place to instruct teachers how best to teach remotely. I do not agree that you have instructed teachers to take too many days to plan, or that having asynchronous Wednesdays and no school for development days and holidays is a wanton disregard for the children you are responsible for. I think if you had shown some positive examples of distance learning during meetings, you would be accused of hiding families' true experiences. And for what it's worth, my first grader is thriving in distance learning, though I acknowledge we have a privileged situation since we have created a learning pod. And I absolutely disagree that the board has set our community back. You did not cause COVID. You can't cure it. You don't have power to affect rollout of the vaccine. I see you working to make the best possible decisions given the situation we have been dealt. I am sad and angry that people in our community would write such a letter to you. I also don't understand from the letter how the signatories would have students be in school 5 days safely, especially given the news yesterday that we have identified 5 cases of the more contagious variant in the state. If anything, the variant will make it more difficult for students, teachers, and staff to be in school safely. These are really hard decisions with no easy answers, and whatever decisions you make will make some people angry and frustrated. So please know that I don't agree with the letter, and I thank you for doing a hard job in an unprecedented time. Megan Walsh. Next email isn't addressed to anybody, but it starts with, for the sake of time, we have selected the main points of our letter. The full dissection is available on edinazephyrus.com. This past week, an open letter was released from Edina Parents for Progress addressed to the Edina School Board, demanding a timely return to a full 5-day per week in-person learning model. Educational adversity is a universal experience among K-12 students, which has been exacerbated by the changing school structure. However, this can't outweigh public health and the importance of community welfare. The 5-day model suggested by the organization severely understates the dangers associated with fully reopening. The letter addressed the lack of transparency from the Edina School Board. If transparency is to be expected from the administration, it is certainly reasonable for us to ask the same from the community members in charge of Edina Parents for Progress. Are the leaders of Edina Parents for Progress currently involved with the district, or are they Edina residents whose children have graduated? There is a meaningful distinction between the two, and one that isn't publicly answered. The same parents who try to micromanage the EPS faculty and demand leadership accountability must extend that same courtesy towards EPS students. Safe return to the classroom is not possible in the proposed 5-day face-to-face model. The hybrid system utilized earlier in the academic year used measures such as reduced class sizes to ensure social distancing and increased COVID precautions. Full capacity classrooms do not provide the social distancing required to manage the transmission of the virus. None of us are against the implementation of a hybrid model. Students with an unsafe or unstable learning environment must be able to return, but that won't happen safely under their current demands. When EPS opens its doors, it must be done with care and in accordance with CDC guidelines. Ultimately, preserving the lives of frontline workers, neighbors, and family members, many of whom are in low-income households, takes precedence over a rushed school reopening. Distance learning isn't easy. However, in the midst of a global pandemic, community safety is paramount. Medical professionals see the implications of a reckless response to COVID and set guidelines according to hard data. And right now, they're telling us to stay home. Signed by Isidore Lee, Mia DiLorenzo, and Izzy Wagner, Edina High School students.
Thank you, John. Thank you for reading all of that
Yes.
public input. I appreciate that.
Erica, I had one quick thing. Just you gave kind of the overview of what we do in terms of the emails that come in and how they're viewed. Sorry, I'm so out of breath. And the one thing I wanted to just mention was just so everybody knows, we don't respond to them in real time either. So agree or disagree, or if questions are asked, even if something is said, like we've never reviewed student wellness, which isn't true, like we don't respond. So it's just something that we let them go by, we listen, and then we respond later.
Thank you. Thanks, Matt. We're going to move on to our consent agenda. Is there anything that anyone wants to remove from the consent agenda? Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second? Great. We'll now vote by roll call to approve.
I'm sorry, I didn't see the second.
I think I seconded it.
Owen was the second.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now vote by roll call to approve the consent agenda.
Allenberg.
Aye.
Bucks.
Aye.
Green.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Michelson.
Aye.
Shaw.
Aye.
Wallen Friedman.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. The consent agenda has been approved. We have one item up for discussion tonight, and it is our technology referendum. And we have Director Buettner here, who's Director of District Media and Technology Services. So I'll turn it over to you, Director Buettner.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair Allenberg, Superintendent Dr. Schultz, and fellow board members. Tonight, I'd like to continue providing the board and the community an update on the technology levy referendum that is proposed for May. So if you may, I'll bring up the slideshow here. And does everyone see the slide, the technology levy slide?
Yes.
Thank you. So just a little bit of context again. The technology levy currently in place expires in 2021 at the end of this year. It's currently at around $6.5 million a year, and it really does support all aspects of the organization. If you split that $6.5 million down, you'll see that a large portion of it does, or a little over 50%, is for staffing and professional development. So ensuring that our staff know how to use the technology, but as well as people like the media specialists that you saw this evening to help offset their salaries, as well as hardware and software that is used instructionally. Our future needs is really not asking for more, but rather ensuring that idea of excellence in education. Leveraging technology when it is the best tool to use, not the only tool or not the tool that's handy, but it is the best tool to use. And then, like every other piece of equipment in the district, it needs to be refreshed and replaced when it reaches its end of life. And so the technology future needs is really about that concept of ensuring that we have the tools for our teachers and our students so that when it is appropriate to use technology, it's there and available for them, and that we maintain that investment by ensuring that the technology is replaced in an efficient and an effective manner. But it's also about those other areas like our staff and about the software. And not everyone knows, but the technology levy does pay for fundamental technology software such as our finance, HR, payroll system. So the way we pay our teachers, the way we manage our staff, the way we keep our bills paid are all through our ERP system that the technology levy pays for. It's also used to help recruit teachers through and then keep applications, track our professional development, ensure that our teachers are being relicensed and that their licensure is being kept up to date. Critical aspect is an idea about safety and security. The technology levy pays for the electronic burglar alarm system that we have in place, the cameras that we use to monitor our classrooms and hallways and buildings, and our security system that keeps our doors locked and opened, our video cameras for our front entryways, and for those doors to be opened and closed when appropriate. And then finally, it's also for communication. Our mass notification system that we use to let parents know when we have snow days or when there's major changes in the organization is paid through the levy. Our website is paid through the levy. Our two-way radios and our walkie-talkie systems that we use to keep everyone abreast in a case of emergency paid through the levy. And increasingly, as we look at our current curricular materials that were in the form of textbooks, we're not saying that the textbooks are going away, but increasingly textbooks are being transformed. And what we're seeing is rich multimedia and content that is being distributed digitally is really the future of our curricular material. That doesn't mean that we won't still be getting our textbooks, but in addition to our textbooks, we have an opportunity of being able to access content anywhere, anytime, and in different formats to help our students learn. Our proposal for the future technology levy is to raise it a little, about $500,000 to $7 million. And the bulk of that, it would be to help offset curricular resources. So again, that idea of helping to ensure that we have the tools and the content for our teachers to help deliver the instruction in their classroom. This is the proposed annual spending broken down by categories. And if you look at how that compares currently with our neighboring school districts, as I mentioned earlier, our technology levy is around $6.5 million, and you'll see that it is lower than most of our neighbors except for Richfield and St. Louis Park. With the proposed increase, we still stay lower than our neighbors. We go slightly higher than Minnetonka, but I have heard that Minnetonka is planning to go out for a levy referendum as well. And if you look at the average across all of our districts, we would be under the average for an annual levy. When you think about the impact to our community, which is important for us to understand, for a house value of $300,000, the average increase is $11 a year. And for a $600,000 house, it's $24 a year. you broke that down by month, that's a $2 a month increase for a home of $600,000. And of course, if your home value goes up, you do pay a little bit more as well. Some key dates to keep in mind is that we'll continue to refine referendum planning. This month and next month will be the month to adopt the resolution. We'll receive some additional information back on a survey, so we'll be able to understand what specific needs our community is looking for in the technology levy. And then the referendum will be on May 11th. At this point, I'll pause and see if there's any questions.
Thank you, Steve. Do board members have any questions? Owen?
Steve, I have a couple questions. I think for the good of the community, it'd be good for you to explain a little bit how the tech levy will be beneficial toward struggling readers and dyslexia. You had made that point at one of our work sessions. So I just wanted to turn that over to you for a moment.
Yeah, thank you, Board Member Michelson. We are working very close with Student Support Services. So again, based on recommendations and input from this group as well as other people, we have engaged Student Support Services in a number of ways. In particular, we are looking at funding or helping to offset the cost of assistive technology. So getting additional support in the student support area for assistive technology. That is the person that helps identify, train, and promote technology in special education services. In addition to that, many of the curricular materials that have been purchased recently, like the Fontes and Pinnell and other reading curriculum, and dyslexia has a technology component or an electronic curriculum. And so we would be purchasing or assisting the purchase of that curriculum, putting the training on and building that content into our learning management system so that our teachers would have that content that they could use either with main instruction or with special situations where it is called out in IEPs or through the identification of needs. So that's just two ways, through assistive technology and helping to support that in special education, as well as purchasing dyslexia software and other software applications and assisting in that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sorry, Owen, go ahead.
Yeah, I have one more question, and this has occurred to me just in the last couple of days, and so I didn't get a chance to even think of it or ask it when you came to work sessions. But we've been hearing a lot about ransomwares. In fact, some school districts being held ransom, the entire districts. Will our tech levy give us greater protection in that? Can you speak to that? Because I know that's on the minds of members of our community.
Yes, and it's on my mind as well. And increasingly for tech directors around the country, the idea of cybersecurity is becoming more and more of a topic that we need to pay attention to and put resources into. That's in data practices. And so we do work really hard to ensure that our children's data privacy is secure, doesn't leak out. We do sign data sharing agreements with any vendors that we share information with. And we also work to ensure that that data is held protected and private. And then in addition to that is just this whole area of phishing scams or I'd say bad people trying to penetrate networks and planting what's called ransomware software into servers. What that does is it locks down your servers or locks down your data, and you are required to pay a penalty or pay a fee to the person that's holding your data ransom before they unlock it. And we are doing quite a bit for that. One thing we're doing is educating all of our staff on phishing. And so periodically we do phishing education for all of our staff. We've implemented what's called multi-factor authentication in the business office and with principals, which allow and mandate that you can't just use a password in order to get into email. You also have to have some other form of authentication. That way, if your password is compromised by someone They still need that second form of authentication before they can get into your systems. And then the third thing is tonight in the consent agenda, we did authorize purchase of a new firewall or an upgraded firewall. And so that does much more than just firewall protection or protecting the district from bad actors coming into our network. It also does inspection for denial of the service attacks. And it's constantly looking at traffic in and out of our network to monitor that and to ensure that any malicious traffic is being stopped and pushed out. And then finally, the other thing, I just want to give kudos to the DMTS staff. What we've done in the last couple of years is changed the culture from cybersecurity is someone else's job to cybersecurity is all of our jobs. And so all of the team members in DMTS spend a portion of their time working on cybersecurity, working on ensuring that their area is looking at how do we protect our environment, how do we protect our data, how do we ensure that the bad actors don't get into our system. That's everything from our workstation manager, making sure that our devices are patched, to our systems administrator patching our servers every month, and our network person monitoring that firewall to make sure that no one's getting in and accessing our system. So it is a big issue. Costs are going up, but what we're trying to do is manage that with the tools that we have. But of course, as things become more sophisticated, we also have to become more sophisticated in how we counteract that, and that does come at a cost.
Janie?
Yeah, it was just a quick comment. I know Steve's he's heard me talk about this many times, but I just wanted to say that I'm really grateful that you made mention of the assistive technology being a part of this, especially with literacy. I think people don't realize that is a critical component to the success of a lot of students, and it might be something that people could take for granted, but I know in our household, it's really the difference between success and failure. So it's really, really important, I think, to our district. So thank you for making mention of that, Steve.
Yeah, I just would like to, I think in our teaching and learning department, or what we call the district office, there is a renewed idea that student support service isn't an isolated island, but we have to be integrated in how we solve our problems and how we deliver instruction. So that's the teaching and learning department. That's Donna Roper in the research and assessment area. That's in DMTS, and it's in Jeff Jorgensen's area in student support services with Bonnie on board. And so we are all looking to say, let's work together. So as we adopt things, we got to make sure that the technology components there, the student support services are there, the teaching and learning department, the deans and the buildings. And so I really enjoy this collaborative effort of working to solve the things. And then I would be remiss if I didn't also point out that earlier this evening you saw the media specialist talk. I think they play a huge role in our literacy. They are phenomenal. My title is Director of Media and Technology. I have the incredible honor of working with people like Sharon and Krista, Linnea, Kathy, and Kip, all the media specialists at the elementary and the secondary, Heather, Bob Deal, and Sarah Swenson, and they too are on the front lines working on literacy day in and day out. And this tech levy helps that whole group be able to provide the services we need to be excellent in our education.
Great. Thank you, Steve. Matt?
Hey, Steve. I'm not going to go long. We talk pretty often, but I think that everything that you're doing is a really good stewardship of the tech levy, and that's kind of the auspices under which you're presenting tonight. So there's a lot of good things in there, and whether it goes, as you said, Owen, we don't have Bitcoin on hand, so if we do get locked down, we'd be in quite a lot of trouble. So it goes from the security element to personal security to education to delivery of all content and support. And I think that if you look at any comparative school in the West Metro District, the levy requests and all of that are exactly in line with a several percentage mix of what anybody else is doing that's competitive. So whether you value safety, security, excellence in education, whatever it is, this keeps us competitive. So I'm just grateful for all the work you and the team are doing.
Thank you. I'll pass that on to my team. They do the bulk of the work.
Great. Lenny?
So, Steve, you noted that a number of the districts in our area have larger levies. So the question I have is there anything sort of substantive or material that we're not going to be able to do because we are capping our levy at 7? Because we're now locked in for 10 years, assuming that it passes. And so the question I have is that the right number? Is there something that we're missing out?
Well, that's a great question, and I've been talking with my partners in other neighboring districts. I think it is the right number. I think in this era of being just part of the technology vision is being good stewards and being recognizing that the investment of the Edina public or the Edina community has in technology. And so I try to run the technology budget like it's my own pocketbook. And so I'm trying to make sure that what we're doing is have enough, but be conscious of how it's used. I'd say this, that the most important aspect of education is our educators, our teachers, and the people that support the classroom. And so technology is just a tool on it. And so I think the technology levy is that good mix. And so there is some staffing involved in the technology levy that helps where appropriate, where staff are supporting our tools or supporting the maintenance and management and the support of technology, that we're helping to underwrite their salaries, not all of it. And so I think it's a good mix. But I also think that where we really need the money going forward is not necessarily in the technology levy, but rather in our staffing and making sure that we have the staff needed. So I'd say we're positioned fairly well. And I'll always work with the leadership. So Dr. Smazel, our teaching and learning director, again, Donna Roper and John Tope and our HR director. And every year as we go through the budget process, the technology budget is at that table as well. And how can we leverage that technology budget to help fill needs and identify priorities? And so from what I've heard from that group, it sounds like it's the right mix, it's the right amount going forward.
Great. Thank you, Steve. Any other? Oh, Julie?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment, Steve. Not really a question, but I think you've done an excellent job of explaining the technology levy and what it does and what it means for our district. I think one of the things that is very clear in here, which I think is great, is that it ties right back to our strategic plan and our vision and mission, right? And that it goes to what Janie was talking about, unlocking possibilities for students so that they can thrive. And I think that one of the things that is important for our community to hear is that this is a parallel path with COVID. I think COVID taxed your department tremendously with tech help, and really technology was essential. It really did allow more possibilities than we could have imagined 50 years ago, that we would never been able to do this. So I'm just really want you to take a moment, because I'm proud that we were able to have this parallel path going at the same time. And I know how challenging that is when we've got COVID, which is a giant variable impacting every single department and every student and every decision, to still be able to keep other things moving forward. So, so.
Thank you. I really truly mean that we believe technology is a tool in the toolbox of hands of our teachers. Right. And so as our students start coming back to school when we see it's safe, and they start coming back face to face, I know I've heard from a lot of teachers that we'll probably maybe take a little bit of a pause from technology, reduce our screen time, and spend more time with those relationships. And that's that idea of intentionality. And that comes through working with our teachers to provide the professional development to understand when is the best time to use that technology and when is the time to set that technology aside. And so I fully expect, as our students start coming back to school, what we'll do is maybe grab those iPads that the kindergarten, first and second grade students were used, give them a health check to make sure that they're up and running, make sure that Google Meet is working and things like that, update the applications. but also give some time for our teachers and students just to be in a classroom and nurture those relationships. That really is what we'll remember about our education experience as well. It's those teachers that impact our lives. And so we're very excited about using technology when it's supposed to be used and when it's the best tool, but also setting it aside and keeping our relationships alive with our teachers and students.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for bringing this forward and all the work doing this. We all appreciate it. So we know how vital it is for our district. So I think that's all for that topic for discussion. We have 4 items up for action tonight. The first one are the budget parameters. Do I have a motion to approve the budget parameters?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Matt for the second. John Toke, we have you up again to present the budget parameters.
Thank you, Chair Allenberg, Superintendent Schultz, and members of the board. We developed these budget parameters so that I can put together a projection of what our budget will look like for the 21-22 school year. In this case, there's about 3 very key parameters. We have discussed this in first the board work session a couple weeks ago. Second, we had this in front of our finance committee to look over all these parameters and have input on those. And third, we discussed them a little bit tonight in the work session before this board meeting. So just want to go through just some of the key parameters that make
John, this is Matt. Sorry to cut you off. I just wanted to mention one quick thing as you're leading into that, because I didn't want that to go over too quickly. Okay. The process in a general scope is it often goes to the Finance and Facilities Committee, and then it goes to the work session, and then it goes right to the board. But this is literally the 7th or 8th iteration of the budget that we've had to rewrite or reevaluate as a board and as a committee because of COVID in the past 12 months. So I wanted people to note that, as John mentioned, because of the importance of it, we took it first to the whole board in a work session, then back to the committee, then to the board in a work session again. So this is the 4th time this is being reviewed. I want to make sure that as people think about things like the tech levy and things like fiscal discipline, the amount of time and energy that the finance committee and especially the administration is putting into being thoughtful about this is extreme, but it's appropriate in this environment. So I just wanted to say this is the 4th time this is going through board members' review in some fashion. Sorry, please go ahead, John.
Nope, that's a good point, Director Fox. Appreciate that. On the bottom of the first page, it starts with enrollment parameters, and what we put in front of the board and the finance committee was a 5-year weighted average, which would result in an increase in our enrollment for 21-22 on a projected basis of about 76 students, and that's on the next page on number 3. Average daily membership increase of 76 students and adjusted pupil units. That's where we put weight on 7th through 12th graders at 1.2 instead of 1.0 for the kindergarten through 6th graders. That would increase by 62. So we put that in front of the board. We've put that in front of the finance committee. They are okay with that conservative increase in projection. And it may be a little bit higher than that. We don't know. Might be a little bit lower too, but we have open enrollment that is just starting to have a deadline here of January 15th. So we will know more about that probably in the next couple months. The next thing I wanted to go over with the public and the board is on the revenue. So the general education aid per student is something that the legislature sets each biennium. We are in a budget biennium session where the state is going to be looking at the state budget. I think most people are aware that the state budget is projecting a deficit of $1.3 billion for the upcoming biennium of 21-22 and 22-23. So we are projecting our student increase at 0% for 21-22 and 22-23 until we see something different from the state. I think it's prudent. I think the board has had much input on whether this is a good way to go or not. And I think we are all in agreement that at least for beginning budgeting purposes, that this is probably a good percentage to start the budgeting process at 0% increase in per student allowance. The last thing I wanted to put in front of the board as a key component is the salary and benefit increases, and that is at the bottom of page 3, expenditure budget parameters, staffing. The staffing here is saying it was based on December 2020 estimated ADM calculations, and the current estimated ADM for 2021 was slightly less than projected. I think the board, as well as the public, is aware that our enrollment this fall came in on an actual last October to this October basis about 100 students, but also came in 151 students approximately lower than what was projected and what was budgeted for this current school year. So based on that, the next one on page 4 is taking into account salaries and fringe benefits, which is the bulk of our budget. And I'm giving the number of $97.5 million approximately that our general fund has for salaries and benefits. So a 1% increase, and that is almost $1 million. And I am going to be basing the salary and fringe benefits on either 21, 22, or estimates based off of our previous settlements. For example, our teaching contract isn't settled. We're just going to start to go into negotiations in February or March. So we won't have that number on an actual basis until probably after we actually approve the budget in June. And then we'll also know what our state aid increase is as well. So I'm going to base that based off of prior settlement data and build the budget based off of that. So those are the 3 components that are the key critical components of starting to set the budget up. So I will stop there and ask if there's questions from board members.
Matt?
Not a question again, but one other last comment is, as you guys think about what's been put in these budgets, as we've seen 3 times before, John really is erring on the side of conservatism, because the goal is to try to have upside if we receive more state or federal funding and relief efforts in the near future, or if we have enrollment pickup as we think might happen following this year, hopefully when things return to more of a state of normalcy.
Yeah, that's actually a real good comment, and I neglected to say that, but this is kind of a max exposure, worst case scenario budget, I would say.
Any comments before we vote? Okay, we'll now vote by roll call to approve the budget parameters.
Allenberg,
Aye.
Buck,
Aye.
Green,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Michelson,
Aye.
Shaw,
Aye.
Colin Friedman.
Aye.
The budget parameters are approved. We're now going to move to the secondary new course proposals. Do we have a motion to approve those new course proposals?
So moved.
Second.
Great. We have Teaching and Learning Director Jody D. St. Hubert here to talk about our secondary new course proposals.
Okay, so secondary new course proposals. It seems like Chair Ellenberg for welcoming, and Dr. Schultz and school board members, colleagues, and community members. It seems like a long time ago that we discussed the new course proposals, which was back in December. And there's 2 high school courses just to remind everybody about: the physical earth science, which is a 9th grade class and will be used for our students in 8th grade next year who are on the compacted science course, and then the unified ACE and creative foods. In the report, there's also a couple of drops and title changes that I don't feel like I need to highlight, but if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments? Ellen?
Yeah, could you tell me which courses are going to be dropped? Are there any science courses that are going to be dropped?
No, there is not, Ellen. Thank you for the question. The drop is a theater production class, and that's just simply it's been it's been on the registration for several years, and there has not been students that are signing up for it, and there hasn't been able to have a course run because of the numbers. That's the only drop. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, well, I'm just, so can you again explain a little bit about the progression for science in the high school?
That is a great question, and we are not at the point of having that 100% nailed down yet. So the progression for high school course changes is going to be brought to the board for official discussion and action later, probably actually either towards the end of this year or beginning of next year. But we did need to speed up the decision on the 9th grade, and that will be a physical earth science course because that aligns with the Minnesota state standards in order to have earth science. And the reason we needed to do that 9th grade a little bit ahead of time than the rest of the science progressions at the high school is because we'll have 8th graders who are currently in compacted middle school courses that will be doing that course next year. And so we have a team of 8th grade and 9th grade teachers and staff we're trying to formulate in order to make sure we have all the content and material and instruction ready for that course. However, we do know the title will be Physical Earth Science.
Okay, and so are you, I know that we have talked about the fact that you will be presenting the board with whether or not there will be an enriched class for Physical Earth Science. We had talked about that. Is that still going to be coming before the board?
Yes, and as of right now, that is on registration for next year. However, we are having discussions and about how we can best enrich all of our students. And so as we do that and develop that, if there are changes, of course, they will be brought to the board.
Okay, so there is going to be an enriched Physical Earth Science?
That is, well, the physical, that's a good question, Ellen. The 8th grade course, there will be enriched, but the Physical Earth Science is compacted. Okay, so there won't be a Physical Earth Science in 9th grade and an enriched, because that Physical Earth Science that the 8th graders will be taking is going to be it's done in a compacted fashion because there's less time to do it at the 8th grade than there is in the 9th grade.
Why is there less time?
That's a great question. It's the schedule and the school year and how that comes together for the middle schoolers.
I really don't understand. I'm sorry. It's a school. It's the same school year for middle school as it is for high school.
The length of the class periods at the high school and the middle school vary, so you get less instructional time in a middle school schedule than you do in a high school schedule.
So the number of days are the same, but the instructional time is different.
And so the students, so just so I'm catching this, so currently you are not planning on having an enriched Physical Earth Science offered at the high school?
Right now.
Course, as a separate course.
Right, and there will not be Physical Earth Science at 9th grade next year yet. That will be the following year, but it will be in the 8th grade class because those students will need that class and will be ready for it. However, we're designing it together with 8th and 9th grade.
Okay,
can I help clarify? Because it's my understanding that we're approving this class for 8th grade at this point.
Yes.
And we're not approving an honors class because taking the class in 8th grade as opposed to 9th grade is making it honors in and of itself. People are taking it a year ahead. And so that makes it an honors class for 8th grade. The decision as to whether or not to offer honors or enriched when this class gets to 9th grade is going to be made at a later date. None of those decisions have been made yet.
Yes, that is correct.
I understand that now. It wasn't it wasn't clear from the way that it was written in the packet, just to say that this
Absolutely.
No, it's like I was approving a 9th grade class.
Yes, it's a good question and a great paraphrasing, Chair Ellenberg. Thank you.
And so how can I just ask, how different is this from the AP or science?
Ellen, that's a good question. We have not created this course yet. It is to align with the new MDE standards that are for a 9th grade earth science class. And so I have to be honest, I'm not 100% familiar with all the secondary courses and offerings yet. And I'm not the best one to probably answer that question right now. However, I could have someone follow up with you for sure.
Sure, I would love to hear whether or not it's possible, since we are talking that this is going to be a compacted class, whether or not what it's covering is also going to be able to be used as an AP course. So I'm just saying that if you haven't designed it yet.
Yes, and that's a great question as we design and create, yes, and bring the standards in with the instructional materials and the instruction.
Right, okay, yeah. Thank you.
Are there any other questions before we vote? Okay, we'll now vote by roll call to approve the new course proposals.
Ellenberg,
Aye.
Fox,
Aye.
Green,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Michelson,
Aye.
Shaw,
Aye.
Wallen-Friedman,
Aye.
The new course proposals are approved. And we'll move on to elementary grading. And we have Director St. Hubert here for that as well. Sorry.
Thank you, Chair Ellenberg and Dr. Schultz and members of the board. The elementary report.
I apologize. Do I have a motion to approve the elementary grading?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Every time, second.
You can tell it's getting to the end of the meeting.
Yes, lots of hours. And the elementary grading report is very similar to last week. I just wanted to point out that we did do some reflection and collaboration upon the question that if we are reporting out kindergarten official grades at the end of the school year, that seems like a long wait to give that official information in a more of a reporting out format. And so we are in collaboration with kindergarten teachers, and we will be determining a way. We just haven't had all the time to figure that out exactly yet, of reporting prior to the end of the year. So we're looking at kind of probably right around the spring break time, which would be a midway point to when students are coming back into school and the end of the year. So that's the only thing I wanted to make sure I pointed out in the report, that we're still being fluid with that and responsive to the questions we're hearing.
Great, thank you. Are there questions or comments before we vote? Great. Oh, sorry, Ellen, I didn't see that.
Yeah, I know I brought this up at the last meeting, but I really am concerned that our elementary grading proposal doesn't include an I for incomplete. I believe that there's a difference between a student not completing work or not attending online classes and a student attending but not performing very well on that work.
Yes.
So I think that the remedies and interventions for those two scenarios would be different. And so I have really two questions. What number grade will be given a student that's not attending classes or is not completing assignments?
Is that question one?
Yeah, that's question one. Okay. You want to know the other one too?
That's perfect. Each individual teacher will work through that with different scenarios. But if there's a student, we have very, very few students at the elementary that are just not attending, and the teachers and the principals are all in touch with those families. And so that's a really limited number. But our scale on the elementary being 1, 2, 3, 4 gives a little more leeway. And so I would imagine that it would, depending on the work that's being shown, even if they aren't attending, it would be a 1 or potentially a 2. And it was interesting because, Ellen, after you shared your reflection on that at our last meeting, I was reviewing some of my notes, and we did talk about using the MARC IP in progress. And so we really want to hold on to that for future conversations. And to answer you directly, the mark that would reflect that right now would be a 1 or a 2, depending on the amount of engagement.
Okay. So I think where I'm getting at is how is the district tracking students who are not attending, who do not attend or complete work? An incomplete's could be a very specific mark to indicate, and I'm really glad to hear that it's very infrequent. It actually, I know that it would be more unusual in grade school, but this is COVID, and I actually am concerned that we don't lose track or don't focus our strategies to meet the needs of the students.
Absolutely.
In this grading process. So how is it, just maybe you're already telling me that those students are identified, but is there a way that you're keeping track of those?
Absolutely. Each individual building has a little bit of a tweak to a system where they have those lists of kids. However, they're following processes where if every teacher is reporting to administration if there are students that are falling off or not attending, right? And then the process that they use during the year is being processed now, where they follow going to the student support meetings that they go to, and they put a team in place, support those families and reach out and find different ways to engage them. So each building, it really is has a tracking system in place of they're able to tell us which kids and families are needing the extra support, and we'll keep keeping that data in our minds with other data as we start making plans for talking about how we support students moving into the future.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You're on mute, Erica. But you have to ready to vote.
We'll now vote by roll call to approve the elementary grading.
Ellenberg,
Aye.
Fox,
Aye.
Green,
Aye.
Jones, Michelson,
Aye.
Shaw,
Aye.
Walden Friedman,
Aye.
The elementary grading is approved. Do I have a motion to approve secondary grading?
Motion.
Second.
Jody. Director D. St. Hubert is here to talk about secondary grading.
And I'm going
to I see is here as well.
Yes, I was going to say, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Smazel, if that's okay. Dr. Smazel?
Absolutely.
Thank you, Chair Ellenberg, Superintendent Schultz, school board members, community members. I think this will be quick. I'll just give you a little bit of setup, and then I'll ask maybe Andy and Tim or Sean to say just a couple words. So the goals of grading is to really help provide feedback to maximize student engagement, to help assist student motivation. And part of what we want to make sure we're doing at the secondary level is holding kids harmless during a really challenging time, whether it is some of the challenges related to COVID, or it could be challenges of busy schedules, it could be challenges in life in general, or learning gaps, etc. Another consideration is that at the middle school level, students don't earn credits. They do have a transcript, but that middle school transcript is very different than the high school transcript. The high school transcript carries with a student or stays with a student their entire life. It is a life record. And students at the high school level earn credits for the courses that they take. So those letter grades have a very different story at the high school level than at the middle school level. So we have a middle school grading system and we have a high school grading system. The important components are that we want to make sure kids continue to work hard and that the grades don't shut down their brains. So we feel like these changes align better to what the research says about how students learn, how students become motivated, and how they become engaged. So I'll ask Sean or Tim to summarize maybe the proposed changes at middle school, and then Andy could do the high school.
Tim, I'll let you start and then I'll follow up.
Well, I think what Dr. Smazel said, good evening, everybody, once again, chair, superintendent, members of the board. I think Dr. Smazel's summary makes sense in that we want to keep kids engaged. And so these changes represent our best experience, the practice we've had since COVID began and what the literature says, as he indicated, with what we're seeing in student behavior. So rather than shutting down learners' brains, for example, when they have when they get a D or an F, sometimes what we're seeing is they're shutting down, subbing in and not yet to keep them engaged, and then executing a number of intervention strategies is what we're finding is working the best. And so I think that's kind of the quick summary. And Sean, what would you add? What did I miss?
I would just add that it really aligns with the philosophy that learning is a constant and time is the variable. We really want to make sure that we have students engaging in their learning regardless. And many years working with middle school students, sometimes if they don't do well on a test or don't do well on a couple of assignments, they find it easier to give up and not do anything rather than persist and be resilient. And we just really want kids to stay engaged and stay resilient. And working with them for a not yet is really a sound practice. And it really, I think, also speaks to the social emotional psyche of a middle school student in ensuring that there's hope. There's always hope. And we'll work with you and we'll bring you across the finish line.
Thank you, Sean and Tim. And this is all great preparation because in middle school, kids are really deepening their skill set and learning how to learn and learning how to study and become learners for lifelong activity. And I'll turn it up to Andy to talk a little bit about the proposed change at the high school.
Thank you, Chair Allenberg, Superintendent Schultz, members of the board. I'm back. And pleased to be here. Similar proposal to what we did last spring. And, at the high school level, as Randy explained, kids do carry with a transcript and they do carry letter grades on those transcripts to colleges. So we are not dismantling that letter grade process at the high school. But what we are doing is students that are struggling and don't meet minimum competencies for a particular course, we are shifting away from the letter grade of F and shifting that to an NG, to a no grade. So what that means is that students still would have to retake that course. They haven't met competency for that course, but it doesn't drastically impact their GPA. We also are allowing students that if they have a passing grade, but they're concerned about their GPA, that first C- that a student got in a class and they're concerned or they have been impacted by distance learning, we are allowing students to choose one or more of those passing grades that they can designate as a P or a passing grade instead of a letter grade. But we also have many students that are thriving and doing outstanding work and excelling and getting those top grades. And we're letting students continue to keep those top grades. So it's really a choice that we will facilitate at the end of the semester as we did last spring.
Thank you, Andy, Sean, and Tim. With that, I'll turn it back to you, Chair Allenberg.
Great, thank you. Are there any board questions or comments before we vote?
I have one. Oh, go ahead, Julie.
Go ahead, Julie.
Go ahead, Julie.
Am I up? Okay. I just wanted to, I know we've had a lot of discussions about this in the spring and had a lot of learning from that. And then I think that we also have had discussion about this fall. And I just wanted to say, I think one of the key components of this, so this is more of a comment than a question, is, the option to have that pass fail, and then also working with your counselor and if that's the best choice for you. And I think that that's a super intentional way to support students so that they are empowered. And again, Randy, what you said about the, motivation and engagement and success and not taking that away. So I think that's a really important key component in this proposal to us. So it's more of a comment than anything.
Thanks, Julie. Owen?
Yeah, I didn't read exactly for this when I was looking at it this weekend, but it is terminal and it will end at the end of this school year. And if we need to renew it, we'll visit it again in the fall, just to confirm that. Okay, good. Thank you.
Ellen?
Yeah, I have kind of first, I'm glad that you're looking into this, or we've talked about this before. I really feel that this is very important for students. I understand how difficult this is to try to learn remotely and with changing models. So I think that you guys are right, spot on to be looking at how to continue motivation during this time. I'm mostly concerned about making sure that we're not going to have students fall through the cracks. And so you probably are going to tell me, just as I heard from elementary school, that you have a system for this in the middle school and the high school, but I don't see it in the grading. And I just was wondering if that was, you were deciding to do it this way because you didn't want to put in incompletes as a student that literally it has incomplete work and or hasn't been showing up, to really identify those students that are not engaging remotely. And I'd like to just hear your thoughts, and using an incomplete kind of in different ways for middle school and high school is also a concern of mine. So I have those two questions for you.
Well, thanks for your question. I can speak from the high school level. Teachers still give incompletes. We haven't removed that from the system. But typically an incomplete is designated kind of with a contract between that teacher and a student to really give an extension for the end of the term. And so we've had incompletes, and that will continue. What we're doing here is really with the NG is tied to students that really have not met minimum standards and would have received an F on their transcript. And we have given Fs at Edina High School previously, but we're saying during this time period, we feel like we want to hold students harmless. We are not having kids earn credit for classes where they haven't met minimum competencies, but they're not having their GPA as a zeroed out for that particular class. In terms of intervention and support, we have a really robust system of identifying struggling students, whether it's in ninth grade teaming model that you all supported gracefully, and it's great for us, and through our SSTs that are divided into 4 teams by alphabet. That's also allowed us to have really good data about the kids that we are going to be bringing back to provide some support for them in distance learning going forward that we're proposing. And so we have actually a good finger on how kids are doing during the term so we can respond to them as quickly as possible.
Thank you.
Chair Allenberg, Superintendent Schultz, school board members, and community. I wanted to say, to address your question, Ellen, that we have a robust system as well at the middle school level. Each middle school does have Kid Talk weekly, and we in our Kid Talk, we really focus it on attendance and making sure if kids are engaging, and we have interventions set up for kids who don't engage. We have a learner support system set up for students who don't engage. We at Valley View plan on bringing some students into face-to-face learning starting January 25th. And we have an SAT process, which is similar to the high school SST process. So I feel good about the interventions we have, and we are trying desperately to not have any students fall through the cracks. And we have our data from last year, so we know, at least in our 7th and 8th graders, who we are worried about with that. With regard to the not yets and incompletes, at the end of the semester, a student, if they have made progress, a teacher can change that grade from not yet into a grade if a student has made progress and met essential standards. If they are still struggling, this week and next week, teachers are going to be thinking about what are the most essential things moving forward for second semester, and the student could end up with an incomplete on their in their grade instead of a not yet. The not yet will change; it won't stand for the semester. It will either be a grade or an incomplete.
Right. So thank you. That I knew that was likely that you guys had a system for tracking these students, and it wasn't. It wasn't clear on this that apparently you're not using the grading system for that purpose, which is fine. But I am curious why that the not yet is going to shift to an incomplete. It's just different for middle school versus high school. The not yet versus a no grade. Does it?
A not yet will not be, the state will not accept an NY as an official grade. So it's strictly a bookkeeping piece. Incomplete seemed like a better option because truly the work is incomplete.
Okay. Thank you.
Jamie?
I'll just be really quick. I just wanted to comment for Tim and Sean that I wanted to say that I've been really impressed with what's been happening at the middle schools as far as more than one teacher really knowing what's going on with the students, and the NY process has been I agree that it's been showing kids that they do have an opportunity to keep going and that it isn't finite. And so kind of to Ellen's question, it's been very obvious to me that these kids are not, there's many opportunities for them to rise above a crack because there's so many teachers that are really keeping track of them, and the conversations you can tell are really happening. So I just wanted to give you a big shout out for that because it's been really impressive.
Well, thanks for that comment. And I think that just underscores, some of the heavy lifting that teachers are doing to try to lift kids up during this time. So, so many things happen every day that we don't see or aren't public, so I appreciate you making those comments because that it really is true. The teaming model is super alive and teams are really working hard on that. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, we'll now vote by roll call to approve the secondary grading.
Ellenberg?
Aye.
Fox?
Aye.
Green?
Aye.
Jones?
Aye.
Michelson?
Aye.
Shaw?
Aye.
Wallen-Friedman?
Aye.
The secondary grading is approved. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Do any committee chairs have any updates? Matt?
Yes, just briefly, not on the finance committee. I think we spent time on that tonight. On the testing subcommittee that's been set up where myself, Julie, and Owen serve on behalf of the board. Just wanted to give a quick update. So I wrote some notes because I'm exhausted. So
Hey,
I wanted
Matt?
to thank this.
Matt, just, I don't mean to interrupt you, but make sure that people watching from the community know you're talking about COVID testing.
Yes, this is COVID testing, not academic testing. Sorry, thanks, Julie. This is the testing subcommittee for COVID, not for academics. So want to thank the state for recognizing the need for testing across all of Minnesota. We understand the biweekly support that's been given, and that's rolling out now across our state, which is great. We also have pushed and asked and looked at doing more frequent testing and realize that at this point, everyone's doing a best effort. So it does take a lot of time to do the sample evaluation and return of results back to the district. So a biweekly basis is what the state and the current testing centers could support, and we appreciate that very much. We had discussions earlier tonight, both in the work session and in the regular meeting, about the importance of testing. And I think on behalf of the entire board and administration and district, it's the committee's responsibility to continue to advocate for testing to make sure that our students, staff, and teachers and all administration that are in the buildings are as safe as possible. Vaccines are great. There's 3 approved. They're going to be taking time to roll out, from that March to June, July timeframe at least, even with the tier 1 status. So we really want to continue our work in 2 different areas, advocating for continued and more access to tests and also around funding. So one of the things in terms of 3 items there on advocacy. So following our research and acknowledgement from the state in writing, which we received and appreciated that Edina's work and advocacy had a positive influence, we are keeping an open line of communication. A letter was sent today on behalf of the administration after more of our research from John and team asking if we can consider ways in the future that we can even take resources and allocate them from logistics around testing to ordering more tests. So that went out today and continues to be a good communication line with the state. And again, we're very appreciative for all their financial logistical support. The second of 3 is private partnerships. So we do have a lead potential partner. We've been working with 4 different outside groups. We don't have a material proposal from them yet. We've been waiting on that for a couple weeks. Businesses are dealing with a lot, as well as schools and education centers at these times. So we're hopeful there's an opportunity there, but we're going to continue to push down the mainstream process that we've been able to engage with around the state. And the third area is around direct funding. So we've reached out to city and state additional officials formally now after the board's approval to have a little bit of an advocacy element as well to try to find more testing dollars available. So that's where we are. We'll keep working. We're excited that testing is going on, but we need to keep pushing because it's easy to see the lens shift to vaccines with excitement. But when we talk about what could or couldn't come, whether it's the new strain that's entering the U.S. or not, having more testing available will keep our community safer and enable us to have more in-person class time. So I want to thank the committee, and I'm really grateful to the state. Julie and Owen, any additional comments or thoughts, please? This again is COVID testing. Go ahead. Good.
I think
Matt described it very well.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, Matt. I think you covered it really well. I think one of the things that's really important is that through all this work, it's adding this as another piece of the puzzle, right? There is no magic path, but this work is to try and move the needle on things. And once we get students in school, how do we do the best work that we can to keep them there from a safety standpoint? So, Matt, I think you summed it up perfectly. So,
well, thank everyone for their work.
Thank you. Lenny or Owen, do you have a teaching and learning or policy update?
I can talk about policy. We don't talk about policy in January traditionally because we just have our committee assignments determined the week before and we don't have time to have our policy meeting. So we'll be back in the saddle in February for our policy reports. So stay tuned.
Great.
Yeah, for teaching and learning, the items we've talked about have come before the board. And so we're moving on to some new things at our next meeting, and we'll have an update after that.
Great. Ellen, did you have a committee update?
No, I was just going to ask Matt a quick question on whether or not the testing of the staff. I mean, I'm not really sure what the scope of what you're doing is, but have we started testing our staff?
In terms of the process beginning, John, do you have an update from the ICT, from the Incident Command Team today, whether they've initiated that or yet?
Yeah, so we've started just piloting to make sure we get the process down, getting the instructions to the staff. So we've rolled that out at I think 3 sites, including Creek Valley and ECC, early childhood, and that's going well. We hope to have some data coming from that eventually that we can aggregate together to share. And I don't know, Nikki, do you have any other perspective with that?
No, you summarized it well. Okay. We are in the pilot phase of testing, and Mary Hyman and her crew are doing a great job working with the site-based nurses to make it happen. So we're working on making sure that it's implemented at all of our sites.
Yep. Thanks, Ellen, for the question, and thanks, Nikki, for you've done a ton of work across all elements of HR and data and safety protocols, along with Mary Hyman and other administrators. So thank you, guys.
Yep. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. John, did you have any superintendent updates?
I'll just give a quick update on what we're working on. Of course, budget development with the budget parameters. The leadership team will be working on that. Of course, as you all know, we are continually planning for a new learning model, recreating the system again. So hopefully we become more stable and getting back to in-person learning. And then I think another big discussion item that looking forward to thinking about is the federal dollars, see what we can do with those as they come in. So more to come. I'll keep you all in the loop on that. And Eric and I can work together to figure out when we would bring the a planning document back related to the secondary to see how the February 16th plays out.
And John, that was both you and John Tope that suggested bringing it to the board last time. So I thought that was really prudent and appreciated it. And I know the board did too. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Okay. With that, I will adjourn the meeting and thank you. Everyone have a good night.
Good night. Thank you.